in 2010 was a horrific crash, and I was racing in a professional bike race up in Oregon. And so I'm feeling great and confident, I think. And it was the first time I felt like I belonged. And I think that's what made the crash so hard too. So I came back feeling confident, and a woman, we're descending at 45 miles an hour. She crashes, so I'm like, cool, I see the crash, I feel confident once again, so I move left, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen a lot of crashes in my career of 18 months. And then it was the sporadic crashes that happen after the main crash, because people hold on their brakes, they high side, and etc. And a woman just like comes in right to my front wheel and takes me down. So I went to 45 miles an hour to 0, didn't tear shorts, didn't do anything. I just shattered my pelvis, all my ribs, everything, and broke my brain. So TBI.
This episode is brought to you by Pause, Breathe, Reflect, the app that can help bring more mindfulness to your everyday moments. Imagine what would be possible if more people could live more mindfully. Well, hello there, my fellow like-hearted humans. It's Michael, and this is the Kintsugi Podcast. And this week, we have another amazing story of connection. This one comes out of the cycling world, which is a world I know fairly well, as you know. And every now and again, I love to bring you inspiration from this part of who I am, this world that I pedal in. And I know you're going to want to share this episode with your friends, your colleagues, your family members, whether they ride a bike or not. But I would add, I think they should ride a bike because I think the planet's just a better planet when more people are cycling. Just my 2 cents. Our guest is another like-hearted human, just like you. She's tenacious. She's gritty. She's known as the queen of gravel racing. And like many of my fellow cyclists, she's been knocked down. She's had a few crashes in her life, some life-threatening. And as a result, she has plenty of scars, just like us. Some are physical, but others you can't see. She also deals with a traumatic brain injury. And every moment of every day is a bit different. So as the guys finished up their version of the Tour de France, and before all the athletes arrived in Paris for the Olympics, and the women get their chance at the Tour de France, I sat down with Alison Tetrick. And if you know her well, you can call her Allie. And we talked about her journey through cycling, her recovery process, and the work she's doing today to bring more equity and equality to the peloton. And we also talked about something that we've talked about here a lot on the Kintsugi Podcast, the importance of giving each other and ourselves grace. So if you're ready, clip in. Let's take a healthy breath in and a slow releasing breath out. And get to know Allie Tetrick. Hey, Allison. Great to see you.
Oh my goodness, it's great to see you.
I know, it's been...
Yeah.
I've sort of like followed you for all this time, and now I get to see you like through pixels, like here on the internet. So, but I've been a big fan of yours and your story arc for quite some time. So I can't wait to get into a pretty awesome conversation with you.
Yeah, and for those listening, I was late, which is not shocking for anyone that knows me, but Michael was very kind and gracious. I powdered my nose.
That's perfect. All right, so like I always love to start this way. How is your central nervous system doing today?
I'm not going to use swear words on your podcast, but I've been having a rough couple days. And, mental health and your mood. So I deal with depression and anxiety and et cetera. And I'm on medication. And I've hit my head way too many times. And I joked at my husband last night, Blaze, you will all love him way more than you love me. And I said I am being a B word. And he laughed, and then I was like, oh, that means it's accurate, right? And then this morning he told me I was acting like a baby pterodactyl. Because I'm just like, so yeah, my central nervous system is on high alert. And I'm going to describe it, as my husband did this morning, as a baby pterodactyl.
Well, that's real. Like, that's cool. And hey, a term of endearment from Blaze. So, it's pretty cool.
And I couldn't disagree with him, right? Like, it was true. Yeah. I, like, looked at him, and he was doing it in love. So he's very loving and kind. And I was just, like, accurate. And now I still want to bite or scratch or fly. That's how my central nervous system is doing. Hey,
I think it's pretty human. I love that. I love that response, because we all have days like that, you know, and it's not all sunshines and daffodils and all that good stuff like that. So speaking of Blaze, so we love a good connection story here on the podcast. How'd you guys meet?
Oh my goodness. This is my favorite story, and he likes to correct me, but he's not here, so I get to tell my
he's not here, so you get to share anything you want to share, Allison.
My husband is amazing. He's a mechanical engineer. His name is Blaze. And he works for SRAM. And so for the bike dorks out there, SRAM, I have been with SRAM my entire career as a professional cyclist, but he works for SRAM. He's their national sales account manager. But he fixed my bike to win Belgian Waffle Ride. Big deal. Whatever. It's fun. And it turns out he worked on a prototype bike, because we were launching the new Roubaix with Specialized, and my best friend trusted him, he's like, oh, I like this guy, and I was like, oh, you like him? And then, so I was like, well, I'll hire him. And so I hired him, and then at one point, we only needed one hotel room. I don't know how much else you want me to tell there.
Yeah, well, I think we get the drift on that part of it, but yeah, so it's like, was there even a conversation about the one hotel room, or is it just like, it'll be one room, and then that's it? Was there any type of conversation, or it just naturally flowed into that state?
My best friend 100% trusted him, and I was like, oh, good, because my best friend had been doing my support. So when you race professional gravel, which I guess is a thing now, I think I was on the...
It is a thing now,
starting end of it. Yeah, but I'm supposed to be a queen of gravel, right? And so I was winning everything in gravel at the time. I was a world tour racer racing gravel. And my best friend doesn't trust anybody, because he's cares for me, and I don't know, he's kind of cranky. And so, but he trusted Blaze to go and take my 14 karat gold prototype Specialized bike home and saw things and do all the things, because mechanical engineer. And so the time that happened, I was like, okay, he's the trust of the person that I care, well, now second in my life, but at the time was the most the most highly qualified individual that I love, and I still do. And so the moment that happened, he did have a conversation, Michael, because efficiency, mechanical engineer.
Absolutely.
They don't have the emotions that I have. I feel
No. You guys, he's dealing with math and numbers and formulas, and you're coming at it with all the feels, as the kids would say, right?
I have all the feels, or empath, right? I feel everything. Anyway, so I'm just doing all of this. So the moment Blaze, so now we're talking very different personalities, because this is what the podcast is. So it's different personalities. So me, completely empath, all feelings, all the feels. And he is compartmentalized efficiency organization. And he's like, hey, I think it would save money if we just got one room.
Oh, very clever. Hey. Yeah. Pretty cool.
Two beds. I like that.
Two beds, but one room. Hey, Allison, that's how it all begins. It goes from 2 rooms to 1 room with 2 beds, and then all of a sudden, here we are.
He did look at the other bed, and he was like, what's it like over there? And I was like, probably the same as yours.
Yeah, he's just testing out a couple different theories. That's awesome. Thanks for sharing that. That's pretty cool. So can you
And
bring
it
us
was,
back?
It was great. It was
Yeah.
That's like happy ever after right there. Just let you know.
Yeah,
So
that's
I
how
will
I
bring
think
you
that's
back, but
that's an
Yeah.
awesome story. I love it. I love it. So can we go back to like, how you grew up, because I know you didn't start off as a cyclist. You started off as like a tennis kid. So I'd love to know like how did it all start for you as far as like athletics and tennis and then that transition into cycling?
how long do we have? No, I'm just kidding.
No,
Well, no, for those listening, I don't know who, like, yeah, you have a lot of wonderful people on your podcast and I can talk for days, but yeah, I have a unique sporting background, when you talk about that, because I grew up on a cattle ranch in California. My parents still have a fully operational beef cattle ranch. They're up in Shasta County, so it's real NorCal, and so we live in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you're like 30 miles from school. So I didn't do a lot of organized sports growing up because cattle ranch, we have horses and all, like,
Yeah,
every
you're not going
animal
to
you
play
can
soccer
imagine.
with a bunch of horses and cows.
No,
No,
and my parents did not want to drive me there.
No, like where was, like how far away was your closest friend?
20 miles?
20 miles? Oh my gosh. Holy cow.
That to me is normal. So, like, it still is normal. My closest friend is, no, actually I have more friends now, but, yeah, so I didn't play organized sports. So like no gymnastics or soccer or anything like that. And I think my parents basically waited until I had a driver's license, but they did like playing tennis. But the way I grew up was really wild. It's just super fun, and I think it's really good for young girls because we have an issue with young girls in sports, and girls start sports, but they don't always stay in sports, and there's a lot of reasons, and all the science and statistics say around, shocking, Michael, but like between the age of 13 and 14 to 15, you quit sports because you can imagine what's happening, puberty. And like I somehow missed that because growing up in the middle of nowhere, no trash service, no mail service, nothing, right? Like we're just on this cattle ranch. I was raised that I could do anything. Like I could be president, I could do whatever, like, I could play whatever sport. And my parents are very athletic. My dad is a Rose Bowl, UCLA football player.
Oh, wow. Okay. So a pedigree of like athletes and an attitude of like, hey, Allison, you can be anything you want to be. No limitations.
Yeah. And yet I didn't play organized sports. So anything I wanted was just in my little, like, I don't know, what do you call dream world, or, my imagination was as far as the hills. And that was so awesome now thinking back on it, right?
Yeah. At the moment you were probably like you wanted to be with other kids, but like now looking back on it, you can look back on it with a romantic sense of like, wasn't this awesome? Just like growing up on the farm and doing all these different things.
Yeah, so I had a blast, and then once I could drive, I played tennis. My sister was playing volleyball. I played volleyball. We all are very tall and broad stock. We talk about stock and easy keepers and everything because ranching. And so I did it. I started playing tennis, and I was told I started way too late, which I did, but I'm very athletic, it turns out, and I played tennis, and I had one horrible coach that said I would never be able to amount to anything in the sport, and then I got a full ride to play NCAA tennis.
Wow, that's so cool.
And I am not good at that whole, like, reverse psychology thing. Like, I hate it when people do that, but he made me
it's just
so
it's a whole mind game thing, yeah. But you come out of it, you get a scholarship. Now you're playing tennis at a collegiate level.
I get a scholarship. Yeah, I get a full ride, play NCAA tennis. But once again, I didn't play tennis till my freshman year of high school because where I lived. And I was playing tennis, and I'm very competitive. Shocking. And I'm like, but there's a cap, because I'm never going to be the best in the world at what I was doing. I was playing tennis. I was quite good. I'm athletic. I'm strong. I have a lot of endurance, etc. But I was not going to be the best in the world at what I was doing. So I realized I had 4 years to compete, which for me turned out to be 3.5 because I blew out my knee. But then what? Like, you're playing at a country club level? So once I graduated, I didn't know, I realized that I cared so much about it, but I did. And I do. And so when I graduated college, I was working in biotech, so for chemistry research and drug discovery at Amgen. And I blew out my knee, I tore my meniscus and all this stuff. And so I couldn't finish my year, but I was done with college anyway. So I graduated in 3 years from college because I'm quite smart. And so then I go and I was doing research for, in the chemistry side of things, and I ran a lot and I was good at running. And so I kept going and I was like, oh man, what's my future look like? And my grandfather, so this is a good story, is my grandfather is, he has since passed away, but we'll talk about him in present tense because he's amazing. But my grandfather is a Korean War veteran, and he never even got to go to college, right? He got drafted at 17, right before he turned 18. He married my grandmother. They were married for 60-some years before he passed away. And he worked. He became a contractor in LA area, and he worked real hard, and he did fine, just an average fine, but like good worker. And then when he retired. And he started showing up for group rides, and I'm telling you, for anyone that's listening that's over the age of any age that you're listening, he retired at the age of whatever, say 55, and he just jumped into group rides. And it turns out the guy is super gifted, which my dad was a All-American for UCLA football player, right? Like, the guy's not, we got good genes. And my grandfather was running, and he was running 50 miles in Mammoth and etc. And then his knee goes out, so he starts riding bikes, and then he won over 17 national championships, and he didn't start racing bikes until after the age of 55.
That is so cool. That is a good story. That's awesome. Like, you're never too old to begin.
He taught me so much that sport is timeless or ageless, and speed is just, it's relative, but he just tried so hard. So so you're asking me how I got into bikes, and that's how. He just said, Al, so if you really, really know me, I became Allie at one point, but my name's Allison. But the people that know me, he's like, Al, you got to try this. Bikes. And I'm like, that's the dorkiest thing I've ever seen in my life, right? Like, he's wearing neon colors. He's giving me these musette bags. I'm like, is that a purse? That's cool. And but the guy is a legend. And then I got a bike. I bought the bike, and I bought it on eBay, and I drove to Colorado from Texas, where I went to school. I drove from Texas to Colorado to surprise him that I bought a bike, to show him that I was going to try. And then in 6 months, I was at the Olympic Training Center
That's
for
nuts.
a talent ID camp. And my grandfather, but I call him Grampy. He drove from Evergreen to Colorado Springs Olympic Training Center to watch me. And he just was like, Al, I can't believe you did this. What in the world? And I was like, well, you told me I could, so I tried, right? You try.
Your grandpa comes to watch you. So what was that moment like for you?
I don't think I fully appreciated it at the moment. I think I was really proud. So the moment, I guess in that moment, I felt proud to show him I could do something. Or I think that's what we search for in life so many times, is a self-worth or validation. But I think I also felt very humbled that he drove the 3 hours just to see me for 15 minutes or something, right? His story's not new, but Grampy was not, goodness, he got drafted at 17 years old, and he served in a war that he refused to call a war because it's the Korean conflict. And like, he was not bitter at all, but he's a hard guy. Like, it's like if you mix John Wayne and Clint Eastwood or something, right? Like, he's just grizzled.
Yeah, he's tough.
But in his heart, he was so darn proud of me. And so I think what I felt in that moment, and that continued on in my career until he passed away. He's the first person I called when I went Unbound, so a 206-mile gravel race, you know? And I call him, and I'm sitting on a sidewalk all dusty and dirty. People are taking photos. And the first person I called was my grandfather, because he got it. Grampy and I just like connected on this endurance level, and also like a little of the crazies that go into that. So you didn't have to say anything. He's not like, wow, good job. But he also didn't say, what did you do? He's just like, I got it. And so I call him, and he goes, when did you start hallucinating? I was like, 176.7 miles. And you know, so like he just got it. And then he just goes, Al, I can't believe you. Like, you're so crazy, but this is awesome. So it made me feel seen, I think would be the best. And Grampy didn't have, both of my grandparents, so like him and my grandmother, they call themselves orphans. They were not, but they just had some troubled childhoods during this time. And so that was a tough time to be grown up, and like especially with all the conflicts and things, which I know we're dealing with that as well now. So talking about love was really hard.
Sure. Yeah.
And he never told me he loved me until I would be like, Grampy, you love me? He's like, yeah. You know, I knew he loved me, don't get me wrong, but he wouldn't, like, the words were
the word, yeah.
It was really painful for him. And once he finally said, Allison, I love you, it had nothing to do about winning those races or anything like that. But the bike, though, did become some sort of a love language between me and my grandfather.
That's so cool. So from that moment, like, you know, Grampy said, hey, Al, get on a bike. Your career like really like took off. Like you just started crushing things, and then bring us to 2010 when you had your first crash, a significant crash. Can you bring us to that moment and just share a bit about what happened? And you know, from that we share big crashes. We have that in common. Different circumstances, but I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what happened then at that race.
In 2010 was a horrific crash, and I was racing in a professional bike race up in Oregon. And I will like to give a little background that I was feeling a little, not cocky, but confident. I'm going to go with confident because I think it's okay if people feel confident.
Yeah, I think confidence is good. Arrogance or cockiness, that's the other side of the coin, perhaps.
Yeah, but I was on like the cusp of my career. So I started racing in 2008. That's when Grampy comes to Olympic Training Center. I get a contract in that first year. So this is like my year and a half in professional world tour women's cycling, right? Like it's a big deal. And we won the Giro d'Italia for women. So it was a big deal. And I flew straight from Italy to this race. And we're the first Americans to ever win the first national team. So I was racing for Team USA. I still serve for Team USA. And so I'm in this race like, oh, I feel great. Because you're a hard stage race in my legs. And I went straight to Oregon. And so I'm feeling great and confident, I think. And it was the first time I felt like I belonged. And I think that's what made the crash so hard, too. It's just... Do you know that feeling when you like you belong?
Yeah, it's such a great feeling. Like, okay, I'm meant to be here. This is my race.
People respect me.
Yeah, like, you know, I remember when you guys won the Giro. Like, I remember following that, and it's like the U.S. women are kicking ass. This is really, really cool because besides like Andy Hampsten, not much success for Americans in any Giro. You come over, and keep in mind you're still like this is what I want to like underscore a bit, not to go back, but you bought a bike on eBay like less than 2 years prior, and now you're like racing the Giro, and you're sort of on top of the sport, which is really incredible.
Yeah, thank you. It was and is. I'm learning to accept that that's incredible, right? Like, it was awesome.
It's nuts. It's nuts in the most like amazing, just kick-ass way, and something to be celebrated.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, and we still, like, I look at those photos, they just came up, because it's like 12 years ago you did or whatever. Anyway, so I was riding the race, and I was in second in GC, because after being a domestique in the Giro, I'm quite fit. And for those that don't understand a domestique, you're real friggin' strong. And no one understands how strong you are, because, like, not no one. Everyone in the peloton knows, but I'm talking, like, when you watch it on TV, you got to understand how strong these domestiques are.
Yeah, they're incredibly fit. Like, they go somewhat unnoticed. Like, going back to like some of the things you've already mentioned, Allison, is just the need for belonging and the need to be seen. Like, and a lot of domestiques sometimes they can go the whole race and not be seen just because they don't place well, because by the time you get to like 10K to go, they're spent. As far as official rankings, they're way down. Like, you have to scroll a couple pages to find their name. They're not winning the Giro, they're not winning the Tour, but they're riding their minds out. Just, it's such an incredible job that you do, and like you did for the Giro and others currently do today.
Yeah, it's a funny concept, and I'll go back, but like domestiques, like, you guys can probably think about it too if you don't race bikes. It's as far as like, you do this whole strategic plan or whatever for your CMO or CFO, like whatever, and then they present it, and everyone's like, that's amazing, and you're like, oh my God, that took so long. So that's the equivalent in cycling terms, holding 300 watts for hours, and I can do that. And I had a sprinter once come up to me. Granted, she was national champion and amazing, and also rode and criterium and won stages of the Giro. She's like, I did 250 watts for 30 minutes. And I was like, yeah, times that by 6. What do you think I do for you?
Sure, yeah.
And
yeah.
She was lovely. She was just like, oh my God, what? You can do that? And I was like, yeah, I get paid. So also domestiques get paid quite a bit. Like, it's all good. Also, you're good on team morale, and that's something we could dive into at one point, is the team morale part is very important. But anyway, so I came back feeling confident, and a woman, we're descending at 45 miles an hour because altitude, and it's a highway. It's awesome. Love the race. But she crashes, so I'm like, cool. I see the crash. I feel confident once again, so I move left, and I'm like, yeah, I've seen a lot of crashes in my career of 18 months. Good. But I had seen a lot of crashes, so I was fine. And then it was the sporadic crashes that happen after the main crash, because people hold on their brakes, they high side, and etc. And a woman just like comes in right to my front wheel and takes me down. So I went to 45 miles an hour according to my SRM, because that's how old I am, and that's when it happened. So SRM, 45 miles an hour to 0, didn't tear shorts, didn't do anything. I just shattered my pelvis, all my ribs, everything, and broke my brain, so TBI. And got life flighted out, which is a whole other story, because they couldn't land there because I was on this descent. So I had to get in one of those like hammock things to go to a landing site to do this. Hashtag not sponsored at all, but love them. Road ID, I had a Road ID on. I've worked with Road ID a lot. I love them so much, but I had one on, and I'm working on tan lines today. No, I really have one right over there. Amazing company. I love Edward and everything they do. And it was funny, Michael. I was like made fun of for having a Road ID on, because I did some commercials that were aired during the tour at that time with Bob Roll and stuff. And like Lance was great with that. And I had one on, but I'm telling you, I'm in a hammock flying like 1,000 feet in the air to a landing site to go to the hospital, and I'm like in and out of consciousness because traumatic brain injury and broken everything, and I'm on a lot of morphine. And they like pull up my hand and they see that road ID, and it does not save your life, but it tells your loved ones. And my dad was at the race watching me, and my dad made it to the hospital before I did in a helicopter. So, wear road ID. But yeah, I had a traumatic brain injury there, unconscious. But this is like a little prior to when brain injuries were sexier, more popular with NFL and like NHL, stuff like that. So, I mean, I had a shattered pelvis, so I can't walk. People break their pelvis and they can walk. I was down for the count. I had a lot of broken bones. And so I was like in a wheelchair, and the hospital they told me that I could leave if I could walk out. I don't think I liked the nurse much, but I think I tried to set her up with my ex-husband. I have no idea, right? Morphine, traumatic brain injury.
Sure, yeah. Every moment is a little bit different, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, you have to walk out. And I was like, I didn't like her. And she might have been awesome. I have no idea. But I was on a lot of drugs and super concussed. So I walked 4 steps. They let me out of the hospital, and then I didn't walk again for like 6 months.
Wow.
I don't know why I walked.
Yeah, that's actually, that part is pretty amazing, because usually they're wheelchairing you out of a hospital for almost anything. There might be a little bit more to this whole backstory to that situation, but again, you're heavily medicated. I know that feeling. I know the feeling of being, having a significant concussion. Back in 2001 when I had my accident, they didn't call it a TBI. I will also plug road ID. I didn't have a road ID back in 2001 because I'm not sure when they started, but I didn't have one. So I was known as trauma patient Mango until my wife could ID me. So she had to fly out to New Mexico. So I wear my road ID all the time now, even when I'm not riding. So if you know a cyclist and they don't have a road ID, buy them a road ID. So
yeah, road IDs are amazing.
Amazing.
Also, they're cheap.
It's a very inexpensive thing to do, to say you care about the cyclists in your life. So
I put one on my cat. Okay.
Yeah, of course. Hey, perfect. So you leave the hospital. You don't walk again for several months.
And I couldn't read, but no one noticed that either.
No, I couldn't read either with mine. I could only. It was a battle between Us magazine and People magazine. I couldn't read People because the articles were too long. I could basically just do Us, who wore it best. That was it. That was all the brain function I had, and then I would fall. Yeah. So I could do that page of Us, and then I would crash for hours. So that was my existence. So,
but people sent me these long emails, like my mother especially, and I love my mom. She's amazing. But she would send me these, a lot of gospel preaching and et cetera. I hope she'll listen to it probably, but you know what I mean? Like, but she would like do a sermon and like how much she was worried, and then I would just be like, great, period, love you, Allie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I realized I couldn't read.
You can't pay attention for that long. You can't comprehend. It's just the brain's not functioning. So you come out of that first one, and then, not to go into each and every one, because there is a really good profile on you, as you mentioned, on Bicycling Magazine, which I'll link in the show notes because it's a podcast and you got to have show notes. So I'm going to put it in the show notes. But I'd love to hear more about, like, I know the healing process is still going on, right? Because when we have injuries, we have crashes, we have physical injuries, we have emotional injuries, and the brain is a doozy. It takes forever to heal. Forever. And, it's just an ongoing process, and each day is a little bit different. But what went into your healing process? Like, how did you go about, like, what was important for you or beneficial in terms of helping you heal? Because eventually you got through these crashes and you got back on the bike and you're doing amazing things, which I want to get to as well, just in terms of advocacy and equity in cycling. But what was important for you in terms of healing? What worked for you?
So I think on the healing side, like you've touched on, which is really important for people to listen to, is that when you say how long did it take you to recover?
Yeah, are you back to normal, Allison?
And
Yeah.
I'm like, what day is it?
Yes.
And I look left and right, and I like be kind of dramatic because really recovery is every day on this head. And I got hit by a truck a year ago, and that was the first and only so far. Knock on a stainless steel table that I'm sitting at.
Absolutely. That's very lucky in some cultures. It's not the wood, it's stainless steel. That's actually the luckiest surface to knock on. People don't really realize that, but it's true.
Thanks. Okay.
Because it's on the internet, and so it has to be true.
I'm not even gonna look it up because I think you're lying. But so when you ask about recovery, it's like I don't know. Like mental health is a thing, and I raised on antidepressants and of course anti-anxiety, and got diagnosed with a lot of things, and that was really difficult racing at a high level at this moment with mental health issues with a traumatic brain injury, because it's blood in the water for your competition, and you don't want to tell them that you're fragile. You don't want to tell your team director that you're fragile. You don't want to. You don't. Like, that vulnerability that we embrace is not good when you are a professional athlete. So we've watched it with so many athletes now because it's more comfortable. But this was 2010 when it first happened.
Yeah, we didn't talk about mental health and how fragile we really are. We would just embrace, especially in cycling, embrace the suffering. Suck it up, buttercup. Get out there and ride. We didn't want to talk about how we all felt holistically.
No one talks about it, and I hate the word suffer, and I know I wear suffer shirts because I'm on the move. Tune into the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift on the move with We Do, but I make fun of Lance all the time for that because suffer, I'm like, suffer's a privilege. Suffer's not a thing I want to do, actually. Suffering on my bike is not suffering. That's a choice. I'm getting exercise and training. But suffering in your brain is an entirely different thing.
Yes.
And we take it, I think, far too lightly. So like you, I couldn't read, but that's not diagnosed till a year and a half. And I realized, once again, when I say I can't read, I can read a menu, I can see a stop sign. But I'm very happy that you are validating me on that just long things.
Long things were impossible. Yeah.
I would try to read a book and I would get 2 sentences and then go 2 sentences, and just my head was going in all sorts of different areas. And yeah, of course I got other concussions because I came back and I kept racing. That was the first cover of Bicycling Magazine, as the bike owed me, because I was very angry at the bike and angry at failing. I should work on that one next. But, very angry. And I needed to come back for me. And once I came back for me, I did come back at that time, heavier and depressed and divorced and, everything that happened through this span. And people are looking at me like, you're different, including people that are paying me to ride. They're like, you're different. You're fat or divorced or depressed.
Yeah, you're not the Allison we once knew.
Yeah. And I was floating above my head, watching me, where the fan is in the conference room, right? I am sitting up there just watching me, and I was like, insert emotion, insert laughter, insert tears, I was out to lunch.
You couldn't feel a thing.
No, I felt so numb. It was like somebody put, it's like you're drowning in a bathtub, or the water is running over your ears and it gets closer and closer to your ears. And then it goes over, and then you're just like, oh, there's peace and quiet, and I'm watching the world go around me, and I'm in a bathtub. And people are like, Allison, did you hear what I just said? Allison? I'm like, yeah, good job. Wait, what? Nuts.
Were there people, Allison, that came to you and said, "Hey, Allie, like, we need to talk because you don't seem all here. Like, are you in a way to say, hey, are you okay?"
I got a few of that, and a couple though, and I'm sure they meant very well, was like, "You're not normal," which is me being gregarious and the life of the party, and
Sure, yeah.
blah blah blah, and that we'll just
that didn't work. Yeah,
we'll catalog that somewhere. I had Ina Yoko Teutenberg, who's one of the winningest cyclists of all time.
Yeah.
And she also had a TBI. And we're sitting in a bus, and she had not had a TBI at the moment. But this woman I had on my icon shelf. Like, she could just still be a trophy in my house. And we are good friends. But at that time, I was terrified of her because she was so successful. She's won everything. She's amazing. And you know Ina, or at least know of her.
I know of her, yeah.
She's incredible. And we're sitting in this bus coming back from a big bike race thing, whatever. They do that stuff. Ina's talking to me, and I start crying. And I am so embarrassed. I'm crying to this tough German woman that has won more bike races in the entire world than any female ever has, right? Like, I am just... And I'm crying, but I can't stop crying because once I started, like, we're over. But she looked at me with kind eyes, and then we connected. But then she ended up retiring because of a TBI. And she crashed out. She now directs Trek Segafredo. But or Little Trek is what it's now called, sorry.
Yeah.
Let's be correct. But she retired her career on a crash in a race I was in. And she called me and said, now I know why you were crying, right? Like, wow. She got it.
That must have been really validating to you in that moment. Like, a month's time has passed, but just like, yeah, now she understands.
And we became good. We were friends before. I mean, she respected me because I'm a good domestique and she's an amazing sprinter. But like, it was validating, but also very sad. I don't know. Like, today I had a thing where somebody impersonated me on Instagram Twitter or something like that, and they were like taking money from my followers, etc. Oh. And I felt like, I was like, oh, it's kind of a compliment, but also like, don't take money from my friends that I haven't met. And it's just like a little like imposter syndrome in that way, though. You go, why are you doing that? And like, for her though, you don't want that for anybody. I did not want Ina to go through
that type of pain and that injury, just to feel like she now sees you. Yeah, I totally get that.
But when she texted me, I will tell you, I cried my eyes out and I drove down to go and see her. Like I did. And she said, I'm screwed. And that's what I'm like, I'm really good at this, but it's unfortunate that I'm good at this. And it's unfortunate she's in that situation.
What advice would you have for people who know people who are trying to recover from a TBI? You've gone through so much, and you've had different people approach you in different ways. And I know with my recovery, I learned a lot about people. And, some people come to your aid. A lot of people that I didn't expect to come to my aid came to my aid. And there were people who I expected to come to my aid and offer support, and they did. And there were a whole bunch of people who I thought would show up, but they didn't. And they were really uncomfortable with seeing me in such a state. And they didn't really know what to say. So, for folks out there that might know someone who is trying to recover from a TBI, what advice would you have for them in terms of how they could show up for their friend or loved one?
Okay, this is advice I've never given, but talking to you is inspiring me, and it might be horrible advice. It's just like not asking how long it takes you to recover. Like, just every day is a new day on a TBI. And even if I didn't get hit by that truck a year and 15 days ago, I still am recovering from crashing at this speed with a traumatic brain injury, right? Like, and with the depression and inability to read and distraction, and part of that's like me, but I mean, I think like just accepting the recovery process and giving that grace. So I guess rule is grace. If you're suffering with it, give yourself grace. If you're a caregiver, and caregivers, my husband is amazing, but he has to deal with me. Like, I laid on the floor crying yesterday, and I couldn't get up. And you're talking a year later, and everyone's like, you look great. And I'm like this skinny and this like depressed because I can't get off the floor, and my poor husband just is sitting there, right? So yeah. Grace. And Grace is a caregiver. And then 2 would be recoveries every single day, and it's something that's gonna probably last the rest of your life. And I'm not trying to be bad news bears over here, but it's something, though, every day you can wake up and accept where you are, who you are, and why. And that's okay. And you go back to the first one on grace, is you have a good support system that accepts you, who you are, what you are, and why. Yeah. And forward progress, take care of yourself. I've used that mantra. Celine Eager gave that to me.
Yeah.
And forward progress is just, I don't know, you can be walking. You can be sitting on the ground trying to change your flat tire. You can be doing a lot of things, and that's all considered, you could be winning a bike race. It's all considered forward progress, but then take care of yourself is a very key implement into that, which is then about fueling. But okay, eating and drinking is easy. We're all athletes. So eating, drinking is in the fueling part, but taking care of yourself can also be like talking nicely to yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. And positive self-talk.
Yeah.
Or effective self-talk. Yeah.
Effective would be great. Oh, I should use that one now. Because like, I even was saying something to Blaze last night where I'm like, well, just hammering on about something that happened in my day. And he was like, why don't we like rework that? And it's not actually your fault. And like, take care of yourself. But I was like blaming myself for something gone wrong, right? And some of my best results seem so silly, but I was just like, you're strong, you're beautiful, people like you, keep going. And that is like, because that's what Celine told me to say. And but it worked because I'm out there and we're talking about domestiques, and we saw a lot in the Tour. We'll see a lot in the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. But like, you see these things, and it's just like taking care of yourself. It's also being nice to yourself. And it's very hard to say, and I cannot say I'm good at
it. I don't think you're alone, Allison. And maybe, one, I would say give yourself grace. You're probably better at it than you give yourself credit for. But I think a lot of us, at one point or another, we learn to speak harshly to ourselves. We beat ourselves up, and there's guilt in there, there's shame in there. So, for me as a meditation teacher, what I try to get to is that effective self-talk. Because on one side, you have that really negative, harsh, critical inner critic in our head, and we beat ourselves up. On the other side of the coin, there's the real sugary language of maybe positive self-talk. And again, everyone can have their own definition. And we can find a middle spot, a middle path, which is effective. So we can be firm. We can like sort of kick ourselves in the butt a little bit, but we do it in a hey, almost like we're talking to our best friend kind of way, very supportive, like there's potential in you. Let's get going. And but that whole conversation we have with ourselves influences every other conversation we have. And so the fact that you mentioned it, I think, is like so spot on. And I love the fact that you mentioned grace. When I was recovering, you didn't know this, but like when I was recovering, grace was an acronym for me because I'm a corporate guy and we love to make acronyms. That's what we do. That's what people, if you're not in the corporate scene, let me give you a big secret. Really, it's just a bunch of adults trying to come up with different acronyms. That's it. And they get paid. And so grace for me was G for gratitude. R was reframing, almost like what Blaze said. Let's look at this a little bit differently. A was about acknowledgement or acceptance or action. C was your community, or as I like to say, who's in your Peloton, who are you riding with in life, and E was all about energy. So like basically your vibe and your ripple effect and how you're showing up. And so for me, as I went through my recovery, I would focus in on a letter depending on what was happening, because as you point out, like every day is a little bit different, and some days are really amazing and some days just really suck, and really hard, and you don't know how you're going to get through it. And there's really no going back to normal. We just got to find a way to make steady progress. And,
I think that's an interesting point, though, is, yes, yesterday was a day I laid on the floor.
Yeah.
I, just stripped down, sorry, TMI, but, laid on the floor and just bawled to my husband to tell him everything I did wrong in my entire life since I was 8 years old or whatever. And he's like, cool, let's reframe that. So good. He's already on it. He's
on board. He's on board with Grace. It's pretty cool.
He's on another planet. I don't understand how he exists that way. But so the other thing, though, too, is so you reframe this and then you find that good support system. And I love this acronym. But it's also about, I don't know, each day is a new day, but you were talking about new normal. And that's something, and we can close in because I know I've talked way too much, but I really like you.
Yeah, no, you're talking fine. You're like, it's not too much. This is awesome. All right. Now feels like a good time to take a moment to pause, breathe, reflect. And when we come back, Allie will share more about what she's doing to bring more equity and equality to the Peloton and what she believes she can do to Lance Armstrong. So if you're ready, come into a comfortable position. Perhaps you want to bring a sense of dignity to your posture, and you can close your eyes if you like. And we'll drop in. Let's take a generous inhale, breathing up through your nose if you can, and bring your attention to your breath. And now release the breath slowly, relaxing into this moment. Let's do 2 more of these. Nice full breath in and a releasing breath out. And now another full breath in and a releasing breath out. Awesome. Nice job. When you download the Pause, Breathe, Reflect app, you'll find a whole bunch of meditations and breathwork patterns to help you give yourself a bit more grace. And as a result, you'll be in a better position to extend grace to others. All right, let's get back at it and join Allison for the rest of our ride and discover how she's helping more girls get on bikes.
I think what's been frustrating in my recovery process, which we have already determined recovery is a lifetime. And I want to remind people of that all the time. And this could be PTSD from domestic violence. It could be there's so much in this. It's not just a brain injury.
Sure.
You are recovering from how you were raised, and we love our parents and etc. But there could be a lot of things that have happened to you that you are going to recover for the rest of your life. However, you and I being very not unique, but relatively unique, hopefully, because of the population of the world in this TBI space, is probably more prevalent than we want. But having people tell me I'm not normal or I'm not who I used to be pisses me off, because I am not. I understand that. But I need to embrace this person that I am in this moment. And this person in this moment is still strong, possibly, because you're going to bleep out a swear word, is like less filtered than this Bible Belt raised woman, which I still ain't, like, you know, all this stuff, but like, it's every day is a new day. And I think, though, people saying, which has been difficult for me, like, you're different, you've changed. And I cannot control that. And so, also, though, I don't want to go back to who I was. I'm embracing who I am now, A, because it is me. And I don't have a choice.
You don't have
B,
a choice. It's part of the acceptance of, like, not arguing with reality. Like, you've changed. The accidents have changed you. It's changed me.
Yeah.
And we can argue with reality all day long, but the fact is the accidents happened and here we are.
Right?
And
do you get that? Like, where they're like, oh, you used to do this. And I'm like, well, now I don't like that. I don't know.
yeah, it's there. And I think for a lot of people, and it comes from I think a good place in their heart. They don't want to see, and I think none of us want to see someone else like struggling or not healthy or however we want to describe it. So there's an uncomfortableness seeing someone else in some form of discomfort. And what
That's
I share
very
with
gracious of you.
So what I share with folks is like sometimes the best thing to do when someone's suffering from whatever, you've mentioned a couple different other things that we can definitely have some little T trauma or big T trauma from, is sometimes the best thing to do is just sit with them. And you don't have to say anything. You don't have to make it better. You don't have to fix it. You don't even have to say a word. You can just like be there and let the person know, like, you know what? You're not alone. Like, we don't know the pathway forward, but we're going to take one small step forward, and then we'll take another one, and we'll figure it out as it unfolds.
I love
and,
that.
you know, we'll...
It's harder when it's your parents.
Yeah, well, definitely. Yeah, definitely. When it gets closer to home, it's a little bit harder. You know, it's easy for the words to come out, like when you have some distance, but sometimes it's just, you're just there. And the best thing to say is actually nothing, because you're just there. And, I think we've both gone through in different ways some of that experience. So I do want to get to a couple different other things.
Yeah.
So
Let's do it. Sorry,
So
I didn't mean to go all dark on you, but that's what
no, it's
happens.
good. It's good.
You get
it's
two
real.
TBI. You get two TBI patients in a podcast.
Like, you know,
This is
like I
what
think
happens.
I think it's pretty awesome. It's real and it's honest, and you know, Kintsugi is about not hiding our scar lines. It's actually like, here they are, people. This is it. Yeah.
Yeah, I have to remember that story. Do that before the end, but I have a couple things to say. Yeah, you go. Let's go.
So one of the things I'm passionate about is trying to diversify the peloton. So I'm also a girl dad times two. So I'm a big fan of women's sports. And I think we're living in a time where you see women's sports on a rise. You know, you see it in collegiate basketball. You see it in WNBA. I think a new record contract. You saw it with the U.S. women's soccer team, the national team. This goes back years, and now women's soccer is different. But you see it in so many different facets where the money's starting to come, and you know, it's still not where it needs to be. So we can be grateful for the fact that we've made progress in terms of equity, but be thirsty for more. And our sport isn't necessarily the most diverse sport, you know. So it's still sort of like a white dude, you know, with a fancy bike kind of sport. And so I'm a big believer that a more diverse peloton is just a better peloton. And I think you're doing some really cool work with a couple different organizations, and I'd love for you to share more about how you're getting more girls into the sport. You mentioned earlier that girls drop out of sports right when they hit puberty, but like I'd love to hear more about like the work you're doing there to build future cyclists.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I actually presented to Congress on that about like staying in sports, so women getting into sport and staying in sport. So that was an incredible opportunity that I had. My speech was very personal driven because they're scientists and amazing PhDs and all this, which I guess I have, but I'm more in the athlete perspective and storytelling. But I didn't realize that, like we talked earlier in the show, I started like late in sports. So for me, I have incredible parents, although I'm terrified sometimes, but uh, yeah, so I work a lot trying to get more kids on bikes is one thing, but it's more girls on bikes is my passion. So I sell bandanas of all things, and we'll get other stuff, but it goes to creating scholarships. So we could fund the entire state of Kansas and their national interscholastic cycling program. So, it's NICA, but Kansas for a year just selling bandanas at Unbound. And we were able to create, when I say we, my husband and I did start a little tiny company just to be able to donate money to causes that we like, which is like OutRide, which is amazing. I do race professionally for Specialized. It's an amazing company. Love it. And OutRide works with kids with ADHD, etc., and they just get them on bikes, and it's a little like PE program to an extent, but it's also something so much more. And I have gone and ridden bikes with these guys, and they don't get suspended, they get better grades, and they are my people. I was valedictorian, so I am I don't know, I have some issues, but like these kids are able to get out and ride in middle of school, and then they get better focus, better riding, like better grades, better not getting suspended. And it's amazing. And I have ADHD, so like that's so cool.
That is awesome.
Yeah, so NICA is awesome. And then I do like the Kansas, which is called Coyote Composite. And then I work with NorCal High School Cycling League, which NorCal High School Cycling League covers, of course, where I live, but it goes all the way down to like Salinas. So I live in Petaluma, which is Sonoma County, and it goes north and south. So it's like a pretty big thing, but California is also a big state. And then I get to attend the GRIT camps, and GRIT is girls riding together, and I camp out with the girls, and they are just so incredible. And what I love about it, and I'm not saying that racing's a bad thing, but it's not about racing. It's just about building connection, community.
Building community, building belonging. Yeah.
Yeah, the girls they're camping with them, right? Like I'm there, and they're not, someone can be faster than the other, but they're just waiting for each other, and it's just so beautiful. And GRIT, to me, in the NICA program is phenomenal. And I chose Coyote Composite because I've won Unbound. I'm in the Gravel Hall of Fame, and I'm very connected to this Kansas community. But then the GRIT program in NorCal, I get to camp with them, and they're 2 miles from my house. And I get to actually interact with these young women, female identifying athletes in this moment, and it makes me so happy. And they support each other. Like somebody can be completely shredding, like, and the other person's like walking up the hill. No one cares.
Yeah, that's so cool because, like in our sport, there is a lot of ego, especially from like a road perspective, and maybe I'll just speak to it from my perspective as a dude riding. It's like there's so much ego and like how to look and what to do and this, that, and the other thing. And we're just all on bikes. And I think that's the cool thing about gravel. It sort of gives you a little sense of that whole mountain bike culture way back in the beginning, and it's obviously the gravel scene's changing a bit. So it's sort of trying to go pro, but not yet pro, in so many ways. But just being like with each other on bikes, we're riding a bike. Like it's just like we should be able to wave to each other as we see each other. We should be able to support each other. We should be like having a good time and maybe lose a little bit of this ego because we're outside. Yeah, we're competing. Yeah, we might be racing. But we just want to have a good time on two wheels and get a little dirty. And so I love the fact that vibe exists in these organizations that you're supporting, and you're helping create future cyclists. And I just think the world's a better place with more people on bikes.
Yeah, I agree. And I guess I have to go with this though, is if you're riding a bike, you're doing it right. Because so many people I'm a total bike dork. So full disclosure, I'm a dork, and I'm a scientist, and I'm a dork, and I ride bikes.
And you're married to an engineer, and the whole thing. There's a lot going on there, Allison. So yeah.
So give me a little grace. We talked about grace, right? Because I am dorky AF, but I try to play it cool. But if you actually know me, I am dorky. But people tell you how to wear your glasses, what kit to wear, what color socks, they tell you how to dress and etc. And it's, I'm a professional and I get paid to do this. And I'm like, if you're just on a bike, it could be 2 wheels, 3 wheels, 4 wheels, whatever. You're just doing it right. And so many of us are so quick to judge. Dude didn't signal right. Their glasses are the wrong way. Their helmet's backwards. I'm like, but really, are they doing it right? So I think that's where we go on the grace, which is a part of your mantra or acronym.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So let's talk about pro women for a sec here before we wrap up.
Because we have the saddle stuff too.
Yeah, yes. So, we'll put a pin in the female tour. I thank you for the reminder. There was a really great article in Bicycling about, it was a catchy, beat clicky type of title for the article. Cycling's biggest secret. And so you're like, ooh, what's that? And so you click into the article, and, for me, I discovered a lot. And I'm hoping you can share more about what is cycling biggest secret. And well, as background, I don't want to steal your thunder here, but I got into cycling because Georgina Terry, who was a innovator in terms of women's cycling, lived 3 doors down from me when I was growing up. She showed me my very first paper edition of Velo News.
Wow.
It was like my equivalent to Playboy. I was like, all these bike races and bike stuff. This is so great. But she was great in terms of an innovator for building bikes that were really actually designed for women, and women's sizes and height and hands and all of it. But so when I first clicked into this article, I was quite intrigued because it brought me back to those days of her.
Did you know it was going to be me?
I didn't know. When I first started reading, I was reading through, and then I got to you. I'm like, oh, well, this is a revelation. So I have talked long enough, preambled this intro to this great secret. I'm going to turn it over to you now to share more.
Oh, well, no, it's amazing. This is my 3rd cover of Bicycling magazine, but it's called The Silent Epidemic of Cycling. And I had some saddle issues. And what kind of pissed me off, I think I can say piss on the show, I don't know.
Yeah, but absolutely. You can, yeah.
Thank you. Well, I've sworn 3 times now. My husband would have counted, and he's in the other room, so 100% he's counted. But I raced, but I started, and we talked about it was a very early trajectory, so it happened fast. So I had a lot of damage in the undercarriage, we'll call it, at the moment. And I'm telling people I'm not comfortable, but you're dealing with people that mean well, but they're just like, oh, it's normal, just do this, you know. And so I just kept going. So I put things in my contract to train on one saddle and race on another because it was very uncomfortable for me. But it was causing a lot of damage, like chronic inflammation and things like that. And lymph nodes were swelling. Like, it was not pretty. It's still not, but that's fine. And so I end up, like, I start just running my mouth, which is now, if anyone that's still listening to this, you understand that's what I do. And I was like, still just running my mouth. I'm like, what's the problem? Like, I have an issue, and everyone was telling me it was normal, but it was making like this rage in my belly build up. And I know you and I are very anxious and we have all the things, but like, rage is a feeling that I don't get very often. But I just felt like somebody wasn't helping me. And I was like presenting a problem, and no one was like, they're just like, keep doing this, keep doing that, you know, whatever. It's normal. It's normal. It's normal. So I guess I got loud enough, and I got a DM from my good friend Stephanie that at the time worked for Specialized. She's now with Peloton. And I got an email from her. She was like, hey, I heard you have issues. Do this article with Glamour magazine. And I did the thing with Glamour magazine, and then I was very uncomfortable. I was like, this is very serious, and it's personal because we're talking saddle issues, so women and men can appreciate that's very personal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And so I was like, but we have a problem. And so they're like, no, we don't have a problem because we sponsor all these pro teams, like, everything's fine. And then they wrote me the next day. They were like, oh, Houston, we have a problem. I was like, I could tell you this, I don't know, how many riders do you want? 20, 30, 50 in the Peloton that win races that are amazing that have had this issue. So we developed a saddle. And I'm living in Girona. I'm racing not for Specialized at all. And I get on the Skype call with some guys.
So that's by the way, such a dated reference. You got on a Skype call. That's pretty.
Yeah, 2017.
Yeah.
Skype. I got on Skype. And I get on this Skype call, and they're like, well, we'll see. And then the next day, they're like, are you free again at 5? And I was like, where's the rosé? Like, yes.
Yeah.
We have a problem. World champions. Like, we're not comfortable. Like, women are not comfortable on saddles. And so basically what happened is, you know, you can do a lot of tests on heat mapping, etc., but there's pinch points and for males and females, but there's pinch points on the saddle that occur because there's soft tissue moving around, whether you're male or female. And then there's like eczema and edema, right? Like, so you have like swelling, but you also pinch, like, not swelling, like the opposite of swelling. I don't need to go full science. I have it all in my head. But yeah, so we started working on a saddle. And there lies in the story is we made a really good saddle for men and women, but we did design it around women because of soft tissue and pinching and swelling. But men love it. Probably 80 men and 180 were riding that saddle in the tour this year. Like, it's a good saddle. I did a lot of product testing. I flew around the world to test the saddle in very awkward situations, but 100% for the native science.
Yeah, I think it's such an important innovation. One of the things I want to underscore too is, as we look to diversify the Peloton and amplifying the voices of female cyclists or, you know, non-binary cyclists, you know, the whole issue around saddles with men, you know, there are articles about this in the late 90s. Mm-hmm. You know, bicycling had a lot of different profiles, and you saw innovations with saddle design for men. For the longest time before people really started listening to you and your fellow competitors to say, hey, listen, we have a problem here. And it's good that you use the rage within you for good, because rage and anger is just energy. And so we can sit in the energy, or we can use that energy for something positive, create some innovation. So, but again, I think it's great that we've reached this point and the new saddle came out. I think it's also an illustration of we have to make sure in this, just heck for the planet, but within sport, that we're listening to all voices coming forward, and just because each voice matters in terms of how they're experiencing whatever sport they happen to be participating in.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and I think that's really important. Is full disclosure, I race or ride for Specialized, but it's because I raised a flag, 100% not paid or anything. Just was like, where do you go? It's like the Red Bull of cycling, or you know what I mean? Specialized is a place. I was like, I've ridden a Ruby into an Aura, and I was like, I need a new saddle that's covering this situation I'm having, and for them to be able to innovate and respond, it's a great company for that reason. But I felt seen. I mean, at first, no, because you're like, I have a problem. They're like, of course, everyone's fine. And I was like, how many numbers do you want me to give?
Yeah.
And we're in the United States, and this is not covered. Labiaplasty is not covered by insurance in the United States. Canada, yes. UK, yes. France, yes. Italy, yes. And I'm like, and it was nuts. They're like, oh. And so, yeah, it's I think it's about being seen, and that's probably the theme of our show.
Yeah, just being the importance about being seen. So we'll end it here with hopefully people seeing the Tour de Femmes by Zwift.
Okay, I'm going to correct you because I'm in marketing, but it's Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift. Because we need to give a lot of credit to sports that invest in women's cycling, women's sports in general, and the ROI that they have is incredible.
Yes. Well, my kit on Zwift is Tour de Femmes. So that's when I wear. So you're going to be doing daily recaps on the move, which is Lance Armstrong's podcast. Now, Lance doesn't listen to Kintsugi yet, so you can be really.
I'll send it to him. It's fine.
You can be really open and honest here, Allison, with this question.
Oh, then I won't.
So you can drop him, right? If the two of you were going out for a ride, would you be able to drop his ass?
He's pretty muscular right now, and I'm pretty light. I assume I can.
Yeah,
but
I figured you could just drop him pretty easily. I just wanted to confirm that. Inquiring minds wanted to know. So
I'm pretty confident.
All right, good.
But also, that's a very competitive person. Sorry, I tried really not to swear.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So we'll see what happens now. But so when it comes to the tour, and the tour setup, starts on August 12th, and the plan, the route it's pretty wild. I think there's going to be some exciting races with an epic finish up Alpe d'Huez. So as you anticipate watching it and covering it, what are the storylines are you most excited to see unfold?
Well, I think it's going to be very interesting because the dynamic is also going to play that, as everybody has already heard, we're headed into the Olympics. So a lot of these...
The Olympics are happening?
Sorry, for those that are not listening, I laughed really hard. So we have the Olympics, and so if you look at a rider that is Lotte Kopecky, she's Belgian, but she wore the yellow jersey for several stages last year. Surprisingly so, still finished second overall. And she is a sprinter world champion on the track. And also she won worlds this year. Last year, I guess, technically. Yeah. But she's not participating because the Olympics is her focal point. And then you look at a rider like Elisa Longo-Borghini, who's Italian. She just won the Giro. I call her Lamborghini on my show on the Move Femme. But Lamborghini always attacks, and she's just always very vivacious. But she also is going to represent Italy. And then I try not to play favorites, but everybody knows Demi Vollering is my absolute crush. And she knows it too because we're friends. She does ride for Specialized, but her and her partner are just good friends with my husband, and we love them so much. But they also embrace cycling in a unique way where she does a lot of off-road, gravel riding, camping, rides with her dogs in her backpack and stuff. So she's just a cutie. She's Dutch. But she's doing the Olympics, which is kind of interesting because some are not doing the Olympics. Because why would you fly to Paris, have all that stress? It's a one-day race, I understand. But it's the stress of getting to the Olympic villa or village, depending who you talk to. And getting there, being stuck on a balcony riding a trainer. Like, you're not getting good training. You have a one-day race. Yeah, so it's going to be interesting because then Drama Lava, Michael, is we're taking the heaviest hitters in any sport. Pogacar did pull out to the men's. It might have been an Erska thing. Yeah. But you're taking the heaviest hitters, putting them into the Olympics, and then they have to race with their biggest competitors. So you're going to have like a Voss and a Demi for the Netherlands. Like United States. Like, hey, goodness. Like, it's nuts. And so you're losing like SC Works Pro Time. You're losing Visma Lisa Bike. Like, like you're doing just countries. And these women are going to have to, and men, figure out how to play nicely with others.
I know it'll be fascinating to watch, and I can't wait to watch it, and I can't wait to listen to your recap. So I'll be tuning into all of those. I can't wait. I'll be glued to the television, and yeah, I recommend to really anyone, whether you're a cycling fan or not, check it out. It's the Tour. Women's edition, the men's edition, it's life, it's all of humanity, it's our human story of vulnerability and strength and triumph and tragedy and grit and resilience and joy and fear, and it's all wrapped up into this one big race outside with no timeouts through all kinds of weather, and you're exposed just like you're exposed as a human. And I just think it's romantic, it's beautiful, and there's a ton of stories in all of it. So I'm so psyched that we got to sit down and chat. Like I mentioned up at the top of our conversation, I've been a fan of yours for a long time, and I just, the stuff that you've been through and the fact that you're gritting it out through it, and each day is a little bit different. I appreciate your vulnerability and sharing all your different stories and the strength and how you approach life in our sport. And I just feel really grateful to be connected, Allison.
Oh, thank you so much. I hope I did not fail your expectations, but once again, we'll go back to what we talked about, Grace. So I will just accept that I hope that was true. But thank you. You are more lovely than I ever could have imagined. And also, we have so much more to talk about.
We could talk we could talk all day long. But yeah, no, this was fantastic. This was absolutely perfect, and really in the spirit of Kintsugi. From time to time, we all break in one way, and we can all come back in different ways and then just celebrate how imperfect we are. And gosh, if we can get to that, like we're all perfectly imperfect, how much kinder would we be to ourselves and to each other?
That's so beautiful, and I am so sorry. I am going to upscale that.
All right, good. Please do.
Because I forgot the one last thing.
Oh, yeah. All right, cool.
I could talk to you all day, as you know, apparently. You told me 15 minutes, and we're like
we're well past
edit.
50 minutes.
No, it's fine. Also, or we're very interesting. But my husband, Blaze, his mother, her name is Deb, sent me this exact image of the broken bowl and your entire concept. Well, it's not your concept, but
yeah. That is so cool.
And it was showing me and Blaze like melding together in this broken bowl because we did not meet in the most orchestrated way. And she sent us him first, and then she fell in love with me, of course, because she's my mother-in-law, and she's amazing. But she sent us a photo, and she said, "You're perfect with your imperfections." And we laugh about that, so I needed to bring it up every day, that we're imperfect in our imperfections with our broken bowl, because I am like probably most broken part, and Blaze is the glue. But
it all works. I love it.
It's something, though, I needed to say on our first one, because we're going to probably have to come back. But like our first one is something that comes up every day in our dialogue, is like all the imperfections become perfection in this kind of messy way.
Yeah.
But we shine brighter through that.
Yeah, well, that's why it's called the golden repair. It's like we look at our scars as golden symbols of strength and resilience. Like, and I think I look at like everyone out there, I'm like, we're all badasses, like we're all perfectly imperfect badasses. And if we can celebrate that, then there's a lot to celebrate. So I'm so thankful again, Allison, that we got to connect. And one day in the future, we will turn the pedals together. So
I would love that.
That would be pretty
perfect.
Awesome. Yes. And, be gentle on Lance when you drop him.
I will 100% drop him. No one ever called that guy a sweetheart.
Yeah. We'll end there. All right. Great to talk. Allie is amazing. She's so gritty. She's so tenacious. And she's human. It's real. It's raw. I loved how open she was in our conversation, and I hope our conversation resonated with you. And if it did, I hope you'll share it with your friends, your family, and your coworkers as a way to ripple more grace into the world, because we're all going through something. Sometimes we see what others are going through, and other times we don't. But if we can offer each other more grace, we can find a way to heal and connect and pedal forward together. Allie, thanks again for joining us. And I'll put all the different ways you can connect with Allison in the show notes. And when you do, let her know you heard about her on the Kintsugi Podcast. And perhaps you want to pick up one of her awesome sauce bandanas that help support the ripple she's putting into the world. And I also want to thank you, because I know time is your most precious resource. So the fact that you carved out some of your day to be here with us in our Kintsugi community means the world to me. So thank you. The world needs your ripple. The world needs your energy. So keep shining. And if you ever want to talk about how to prevent a bad moment from turning into a bad day, or the value of mindfulness, in the show notes, I'll put a link to my calendar. I would love to connect. And until next week, and another story of connection. Together, let's celebrate our scars as golden symbols of our strength and resilience. As you keep pedaling, may peace be with you. This episode is brought to you by Pause, Breathe, Reflect, the app that can help bring more mindfulness to your everyday moments. Imagine what would be possible if more people could live more mindfully.